And we're back at the Readiness channel. Today's going to be a short and quick little video that we're going to do on just simply showing you how I start and sprout my own vegetable seeds. As the weather gets warmer, this lettuce crop will be coming out in the not too distant future. When that occurs, I'll be replacing these plants with hotter summertime vegetables that I'm going to be starting from seed today. So climb aboard and let's take a look at this process. Before we get to planting our seeds, let's just take a few minutes and talk about the importance of a supply of seeds in your emergency response plan. This stuff is relatively inexpensive. It costs less than a couple of bucks a package. And make sure that you pick up enough items that you can grow food through the early spring, through summer, and into the late fall. In doing this, you'll have a greater sustainable supply of food for you and your family over the longest period of time. Let's talk about heirloom seeds for a minute. If you can find these, this is always my first choice because you can take the seeds out of your first year's produce that you've planted from these packages and then plant that and continue to do that year after year after year, and therefore guaranteeing you an ongoing sustainable food source. Okay, I'm starting some of my warm weather plants that we're going to grow in our container garden now, so that when our lettuce and our cool season crops are finished, these will be ready to go ahead and transplant into those containers. So I'm going to show you what I do when I start my seeds. I've seen a lot of videos and a lot of information put out about this. It makes it seem like a very complicated process where all kinds of special equipment and heating pads and all these things are needed. That may be true in certain parts of the country. I don't know, but what I'm going to show you here is something that I do, and it has been 100% successful for me. You can start seeds in simple potting trays like this with some soil. It works fine. I went ahead and bought some years ago this little plastic seed starting tray. That gives you the ability to make a little greenhouse out of what you're doing, and that does help quite a bit with your success rate on your seeds. Additionally, I've seen a lot of argument about whether you use potting soil or some type of medium that has no nitrogen or other fertilizers in it, and that story gets quite lengthy and goes on and on as well. I simply buy these little pellets here at the store. You can buy refill boxes of them each year when you need them, and you simply put these in your tray, add some water to it, and when you do that, these little pellets will expand and soak up the water, and there you go, we're ready to plant some seeds. So now I'm going to simply take some of our eggplant seeds, and I'm going to put a couple of them in each. Put 2 or 3 in there. That'll ensure that you get something going there. Sometimes not every seed will germinate. By doing this, we'll simply ensure that we have something that's gonna sprout up there. What you do after the plant begins to grow, and you'll have 2 little plants growing up here, whichever one is the strongest, leave that in there and just pluck out the weak one, and then you're left with one good plant. You just want to make sure the seeds are covered with a little bit of soil. They don't have to be buried real deep in there. Usually your seed packet will give you some specification on how much depth they prefer. All the information in today's video is based off of the Zone 9 growing zone. Where we live, we typically start our first wave of seeds for our cooler season crops in January. And we grow them indoors, and they're able to be successfully started in the warm environment inside the house. By now, this time of year, it's March, and we're able to just start our seeds indoors, bring them out, start hardening them off, and plant them pretty soon. We're typically out of any danger of a late frost at this point in our area. If you're not familiar with growing zone, just Google that plus your area, and you'll be able to find out that information. It's very important to have this info because most anything that you want to grow or plant is based off of whether or not it will do well in your particular area, and that information is readily available when you're buying your plants or seeds. So have that information, and that'll get you a long ways down the road to successful gardening. Placed our seed starting tray in a south-facing window with good sun exposure. You'll have to keep an eye on this over the coming week that you're waiting for your seeds to sprout, and make sure that it doesn't dry out. That's probably the biggest failure that people have with sprouting seeds successfully is letting the soil get too dry. It shouldn't be soggy wet, but you just want it continually moist. And using the little pellets that I just showed you with this type of tray pretty much makes that a foolproof process. You would have to almost try to fail at it. After I see some sprouting from the seeds in these pods, I'll simply take the tray outside with the lid off and start hardening my plants off by letting them sit in the non-direct sunlight for a few hours and build up to throughout the day. Once the plants get to a point where I feel like they can be transplanted into a small cup or pot, I'll then move them into there, and I'll show you that progression. This is about where I begin when I transplant them into a container this size from our seed starting container. When they get to be about like this range of growth, where you have 2 sets of leaves starting to grow, you could probably transplant that into your permanent container at this point. I typically let them go just a little bit longer until I get something about like this, and that's when I'll transplant it into the container I plan on growing it in throughout the season. Hey, thanks for watching today's video. You know, I think it's possible in the day and age that we live in that there's so much information and techniques coming at us in anything that we're studying or researching that we can go into an analysis to paralysis situation and just not do anything. Starting seeds in a temperate climate like I live in is simply as easy as I've shown you today. There's no special tools and equipment and all this expensive gear necessary to be successful. For those of you that may live in colder climates and have those types of challenges, then I certainly would say that you'll need to look into heating pads and grow lights and some of these types of things that are available online through Amazon and other sources like that. We enjoy growing this stuff. We find it to be very relaxing and a lot of fun, and also we like eating fresh vegetables, and we make a lot of great dishes out of these things during the summer months. Also, we package and preserve these things so that we have fresh fruits and vegetables to eat during the winter months as well, and we're going to do some videos on those techniques and processes at a later time. So hit the subscribe button so you don't miss those things as they come up. As always, get ready so that you and your family can succeed and thrive.